Alright guys, welcome to the Octagon Oracle UFC 328 full card breakdown. This stream was planned a little bit last second as you guys saw, but we'll make it work. I was prepared anyways. Good to see you guys here. This card is actually impressive in that I'm looking forward to every single fight on this card. Like, none of these fights are just non-impactful. Like, everyone is either capable of becoming a contender or already is one. Same way as we did last time, I will probably start with the breakdowns and then we will go to questions and then the recap at the end of the stream. So because this card is a lot better, I am going to do the polls for probably every fight, because even starting with the first fight, like, this is a fun fight to break down. So I will get that up now. Alright, polls live. No women's fights, that is true. But in all honesty, a lot of the WMMA fights have been delivering a lot more than heavyweight recently. Strong opening for Ochoa. 79% in the polls so far. We'll leave the earlier fights open like 30-ish seconds in the poll. What's more useless, Buchecha or the infamous surprise elbow? I mean, at least Buchecha didn't lose the fight for no reason. He lost the fight because he sucks. Alright. I will close the poll here and we'll get started. Nice to see you guys here quickly, though. Alright, so starting with Carpenter. Carpenter is, generally speaking, a grappler, but he does like to box on the feet. I do believe he has Golden Gloves experience, which is probably why he is comfortable throwing hands. He tends to throw in combinations. He will throw a variety of kicks, but usually it's more of a misdirection than like his actual game plan. When he shoots, it is pretty much always on a blast double leg. He'll also look to like catch kicks to create takedowns as well, but that is secondary and just dependent on what his opponent does. On the ground, he will do a little bit of work with ground and pound, but generally speaking, he's just trying to pass guard and then work towards subs from there. He's very willing to take risks to get to better positions, so his opponents will have a window to scramble out. So basically, when he is in guard, he will try like the passes where you jump into half guard or side control and such, and he'll try them multiple times. So if you time that, you can definitely just either reverse or stand up and so on. On the feet, he has questionable defense because he kind of just uses offense as his defense. He just wants to, generally speaking, overwhelm you. Ochoa is an extremely dynamic finisher, I guess I would say. In his regional scene fights, you will see a lot of fights where he lands like double front kicks or random other kicks and like gets highlight reel finishes off of that. But generally, he's speaking, is going to throw out a lot of kicks constantly. He'll throw out teeps, he'll throw out calf kicks, etc. He usually is standing in southpaw, so he will just blast the round kick to the body constantly from there and occasionally switch it up to the head. Against wrestlers, he throws a lot of teeps to the body to discourage the takedown attempts and stops throwing the round kick to the body as much because it's a lot easier to catch it. He does tend to kind of sling his punches because he has a lot of length for the weight class, so think kind of how like Ruzaboyev throws punches and such. He does throw much more in combination, though, and he will change up body and head within the same combo. Against the wrestlers, he's going to spam the cross to the body, so that he's, again, discouraging the takedown shot from that. He has very solid power for the weight class. He generally does need a combo, not just a single shot to put you away, but that being said, he has an 100% finish rate right now, so evidently he has the ability to put people away however he needs to. He is more of an opportunistic grappler. He will snatch up the submission if it presents itself, but he's usually not just like shooting takedowns and going for anything from there. I think the reason why the odds are a lot closer for this fight than the polls and like everyone's opinions is because Ochoa is super dangerous, so the general consensus is he's just going to knock out Carpenter easily. The problem is that even though Ochoa does adapt to kick to the body more and such, he is still very reliant on kicks to set up his range, and there is a possibility, of course, that Carpenter has game planned for that and is going to use that opportunity to shoot on the retraction of the teeps. So that could set up the takedowns more easily for Carpenter. And while Carpenter does take risks and Ochoa is going to get back to the feet, it kind of just depends how much work Carpenter is able to do before that. That being said, I am going to pick Ochoa by TKO. I think he is eventually going to find the kill shot. Maybe he'll force Carpenter to shoot into like a double front kick or something like that. But I'm not as wildly confident as like the typology results and even the polls with you guys would indicate. But yeah, Ochoa by TKO and we'll move on from there. Nice graphics, thank you. Kilo lost aged like milk, yeah, agreed. Alright, we'll move on to the next fight. Alright, moving on to Chimaev versus Jordan Santos. I'm pretty sure we all know what the poll is going to say here, but I will put up the poll anyways. Ochoa versus Albazi would be sick. I mean, it would finally get Albazi out of the rankings, which would be lovely. Ochoa has too much danger for Clayton. I agree. Santos by a spinning heel kick, that'd be funny. The Chimaev rather, is only a 54% favorite with you guys, which is very different from the odds. This might be like the least popular massive favorite I've seen from you guys. Chimaev is just unbettable. That's fair. We'll get to that. Alright, I'm going to close the poll in a few seconds. Alright, so ending at 59% for Chimaev, that is interesting. But getting into the notes. So, Chimaev is a very strange fighter. He's technically somewhat well-rounded, but he also finds a way of looking bad in every position, even when winning fights. His best tools are his kicks. His leg kicks are very devastating and really destroyed the knee of Eric Nolan. He has finished opponents with body kicks before multiple times as well, so that obviously is a tool he can go to. When punching, he tends to leap in with a 1-2. Doesn't really have any nuance behind that, but he does have knockout power in that too, so it does tend to work. His wrestling is very limited to double legs or just holding someone against the fence and then eventually trying to get them down from there. He does have throws, but you have to have zero idea what he's doing because he will like set up the throw over a good 10 seconds and let you see exactly what's happening. If he does get you down, he tries working to the back and to get the sub from there. He doesn't really have much urgency if he's being held against the fence. He will just hang out there, and when you make a massive mistake, he'll get out. But he's not going to force it. His only real defense is holding up the high guard. He does get hit a lot, and we have seen him get rocked multiple times by fighters that you do not want to see a supposed prospect getting rocked by. Moving on to Santos. So Santos is a high-volume boxer who throws in combos, generally speaking. He is going to trade in the pocket, and basically that's all he's going to do. Like, he's just going to stand in the pocket, try to throw volume, and try not to get hit too much. His hands do hang out a little bit low, so he's kind of reliant on like small micro movements to not get hit, but it does generally work out for him because he has a higher defense percentage than you would expect for a pocket boxer. When he can throw in longer combinations, he will, but he's also not going to force it. He's willing to just like continuously jab while in pocket range. It's a very interesting style and is reliant on probably going later in fights most of the time. He doesn't have the most power. He definitely needs a volume accumulation to really get close to finishing you if he is going to finish you at all, and he's of course gone to decision in both of his UFC fights. He did get pretty badly robbed against Ozzy Diaz. He very clearly won that fight. I don't know what the scoring was at all. So I was tempted to look at Jordan Santos as an underdog here for the obvious reasons that Chimaev just sucks. But then I was looking at Jordan Santos tape, and the reality is he doesn't defend calf kicks in the slightest. Like, I don't think I've ever seen him check a calf kick, and he got hit by quite a few of them. If you're just eating calf kicks against Susurkaev, that is not going to be a fun day for you. And I think Susurkaev is going to absolutely destroy the leg and get a TKO not long afterwards. I am going to pick Susurkaev by TKO. There's just something about Susurkaev that's just annoying, though. Like, he's one of those fighters that, even though he's technically speaking entertaining, it's just like everything he does pisses me off, and I don't even fully know why. It's like he has... There's a way like fighters can have arrogance where it's fun to watch. Like McGregor arrogance, Ilya arrogance, that stuff is fun to watch. But like Susurkaev arrogance is just annoying. I don't even know what it is. But he'll get fraud checked eventually. It's probably going to be by someone who has more power than a Jordan Santos, realistically. So, yeah. So Susurkaev should get the TKO. We'll move on from there. All right, moving on to Pat Sabatini versus William Gomis. I'll put a poll for that. Oh. Thing is so finicky. All right, poll is live. You sound like death, your voice okay? Yeah, this is mainly just my allergies, don't worry. I appreciate the concern, though. And Gautier is more juiced than Minute Maid. His blood was fucked in his anabolic stream. Valid. This is the only meh fight for me. That's fair, but it still should be interesting to see what happens. How was Gomis 6? I have no idea, not gonna lie. That is a good question. I don't know what Gomis did to deserve getting there, but I will probably check out what's happening with that at some point. Sabatini is at 59%. Okay, that's kind of reflecting the odds. All right, well, we'll end the poll there. Sorry, guys, if my voice is too off. Just going to try to keep drinking water and hope it recovers a little bit. All right, starting with Sabatini. Sabatini is pretty much a pure wrestler and grappler. He wants the fight down as soon as possible. On the feet, he's just going to circle a lot on the outside, throw kicks to try to pull his opponent in, and then basically shoot under that. If he punches, he will throw in combinations, but it is a really bad idea given his chin. When his opponent overextends, he shoots on the single leg. He'll just chain until he has the back or a takedown. If he has the back, he'll go for the rear naked choke. If he has the takedown, he will try to get to the back and then go for the rear naked choke. His defense on the feet is not spectacular, but it usually doesn't matter because he's just going to not engage at all. Like, all he's throwing out is feelers to make you start reacting. As I mentioned previously, he has like the definition of a glass chin. He can get dropped or put out by pretty much anything whatsoever. Moving on to Gomis. Gomis is a kickboxer and just pretty much a pure point fighter. He is a southpaw and he throws a lot of kicks with the left leg, mainly round kicks, but he'll throw in a fair number of teeps as well. He circles on the outside and tries to catch people coming in with the straight left. If you pressure enough, he'll throw a heavy combo to get you back off, but he doesn't really have the most power in general. Between his footwork and head movement, he does actually have a pretty high striking defense percentage, as you guys can see. He doesn't have good takedowns, but if he does end up in dominant position on the ground, he's mainly just going to try to hold it there and rack up control time. Like, he is the definition of a points fighter. So, this is a weird fight because skill-wise, like, holistically, Gomis is the better fighter. But he's so kick-reliant, and I haven't seen him adapt it like someone like Ochoa does to start throwing things like up the center constantly. So, with Gomis just constantly kicking, he's going to eventually probably get a kick caught or a kick timed and then get taken down from there. And if he gets taken down once, I don't think he's getting up for the rest of the round. So I am going to pick Sabatini by decision here, very tentatively. I am not confident though, because Sabatini could get like weirdly desperate because of the fact that Gomis isn't going to chase him and shoot into a kick. It would not be a surprising thing to see. All right, moving on to Roman Kopylov versus Marco Tulio. Put up the poll for this. Remember when Gomis was the only person to run the Generational France card last year? Who did he fight on it? I'm forgetting. All right, starting at 56 for Marco Tulio. So that's reflecting the opening odds, kind of. Urshala? Oh, okay. I mean, he still won then, to be fair. All right, Tulio growing to 61% favorite here. All right. I will close the poll here with Tulio at 61%. It was all finishes until then. Oh, okay, yeah. To be fair, Tulio is... Sorry, not Tulio. Rushala is just like weirdly durable. But okay, starting with Roman Kopylov. So Kopylov is actually surprisingly well-rounded, but he is mainly focused on kicks and striking in general. Because he is also a southpaw, which seems to be a theme today, he will throw a lot of round kicks on the outside, a lot of the time focusing on beating up the body. When punching, he is going to typically enter with the quick cross. He will throw combos at times, but he wants to be more of a sniper on the outside. He does have wrestling, which he has been going to a lot more lately. It is mainly blast doubles, but he can hit trips and throws, and like getting down Gregory Rodriguez in the way he did was definitely interesting. He does have very good takedown defense, but if he does get taken down, he's pretty vulnerable there. He doesn't really know what to do off of his back. He doesn't like being pressured constantly. If he is, he tends to wilt a little bit over time if he just can't find a counter immediately. His confidence definitely seems damaged after the Costa fight, unless he was injured going into the Gregory Rodriguez fight, because he barely threw anything in that fight. Hence, what was funny is the few things he threw rocked Rodriguez, and then he just decided to not follow up on it at all. So I have no idea if he was badly injured going into that fight, or if he's just not the same fighter now, which makes this weird to break down. Moving on to Tulio. So Tulio is a power puncher with relatively large diversity of techniques. While people pay attention to his hands, which usually end up creating the knockouts, his leg kicks tend to set everything up. He really will just smash the leg, like regardless of what stance they're in. He's fine throwing inside leg kicks, outside leg kicks, switching stances and throwing leg kicks, etc. He will throw head kicks and the spinning back kick with reasonable frequency to mix things up. He's one of the few fighters you will see like somewhat spam the spinning back kick if he starts getting into a rhythm with it. When he is punching, he likes to lunge in with a 1-2 or just blast the lead hook. He used to get very sloppy when extending combos, and he'd just start like winging hooks in the pocket, but he definitely does seem to be dialing it in and keeping the combos a little bit shorter. What I realized when I watched tape is that Tulio is a lot slower than I realized. I, for some reason, thought he was a fairly snappy striker. Even though he is a heavy hitter, he is not fast, to say the absolute least. Like, he hits hard, but he is quite slow. His defense, partially because of that, is a little bit questionable. It's also partially just because when he starts throwing, he just abandons the concept of defense. Like, he throws one hand, the other hand goes down to his hip, stuff like that. So, I am still going to pick Tulio by TKO because I have to pick the fighter who seems to want to be fighting right now. And if Kopylov's not going to do anything, Tulio's not going to let him off the hook like Gregory Rodriguez will. Like, Tulio's just going to go for it for 15 minutes. So I think Tulio will eventually find the kill shot, but I also would not be shocked if, like, Kopylov found the head kick at some point and put him out. All right. Moving on to Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. Put up the poll again. Kopylov is faster, but it doesn't mean he doesn't throw it all. Yeah, exactly. Tulio kind of fights like a fighting nerd. I mean, kind of, except with much worse defense. Should have EPO MMA as a guest for some analysis sometime. I have no idea who it is, but I'll check it out. Appreciate you mentioning it. Tulio makes it ugly. Yeah, he does tend to. All right, Gordon at 67%, which not quite as extreme as the odds, but definitely a sizable favorite with you guys. Hopefully Gordon doesn't get hit by a car again. That was an excuse of all time. Fight Lab versus Lucrative, who wins bare knuckle? I mean, at least Fight Lab kind of understands combat sports. All right, I'll close the 68% for Gordon. So I'll start with Jim Miller here. So Jim Miller is a very well-rounded veteran. He is very small for the weight class. So he tends to use a lot of calf kicks on the outside and then try to get into the pocket as soon as possible. He tends to enter with southpaw straight, then he'll get his head off the center line and continue the combination. Sometimes this consists of throwing another southpaw straight after he's adjusted and fixed his stance after throwing the first one. He generally will use combinations off of the high guard and maintain distance as his like primary defense. When he is offensively wrestling, he tends to just shoot blast doubles and then hunt submissions from there. Defensively, he will more so pull the guillotine or look for submissions off of his back than traditionally defend the takedown. His guillotine is pretty wild though, so it does work for him a fair amount of the time. He is, of course, getting old, and he does slow down a lot after round one. We saw against Bobby Green even that he was able to take round one, but then just had pretty much nothing after that. Gordon is a pressure fighter, so to speak. He wants to basically use his jab along with takedowns to push his opponent back to the fence. When they're moving backwards, he'll throw extended combinations inside the pocket so that they can't really retaliate as easily. His takedowns tend to be mainly blast doubles. On the ground, he is looking for ground and pound. He's not really going to attempt to sub in all likelihood. He definitely struggles if you force him to move backwards or if you do not move backwards. Generally speaking, he doesn't do well in like neutral scenario fights. He needs that advantage of pushing you back so that you can't counter as effectively. So regarding his last fight, a lot of people are saying like, okay, he only lost to Rafa Garcia because he got hit by a car. I think it's bullshit. Maybe he got touched by a car in some capacity, whatever. He looked the same as he always does. Like, I didn't think there was any difference in his performance as there was in any other fight. I picked Gordon to win that fight. I thought Garcia looked amazing and just beat Gordon where Gordon usually wins. Like, Garcia was just not backing up and he was the better pocket boxer. And Gordon just had no real response for that. So I don't think that should, like, factoring in supposedly getting hit by a car should factor into anyone's predictions here, in all honesty. That being said, I am still going to pick Gordon to win a decision here. I think that Miller's cardio is a little bit too questionable, and if he cannot finish Gordon in round one, I don't really see him winning rounds 2 and 3. Miller definitely does have the round one finishing upside, though. I would not be shocked if he was able to sub Gordon in round one, which is why I'm not wildly confident, and I don't have in all honesty, I don't really have a particularly high opinion of Gordon's skill set, but I still think this is kind of supposed to be a setup fight for Gordon. We'll see that, and he'll take like a 29-28 decision. All right, moving on to Grant Dawson versus Mateusz Rębecki, or however you say his last name. I always forget. I will put up the poll for this. All right, poll is live. Genuinely worried Jim might croak during the fight. I mean, to be fair, he's never looked bad recently. Even against Chase Hooper, he took a round. And in the fight before that, he subbed Damon Jackson. He was supposed to lose that fight as well, so. Backed into him and he hyperextended his knee, so he did technically get hit, but it wasn't anything ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think it was anything that impacted performance, in all honesty. Rębecki beat Oral by people forgot, man, that is true. Rębecki is opening a 65% favorite with you guys, interesting. Grant Dawson being the favorite is low-key shocking, knowing how he literally can't take a punch. We'll get to that. At first, yeah, Grant Dawson down, maybe. Lucrative James type person to put 100,000 on Jeremy Stephens. I feel like he's more like the type of person to put like 100,000 on Jared Gordon. And like, while that could work out, it's just not positive expected value. All right, I will close the poll at 64% for Rębecki, which is surprising because he is the underdog. In fact. All right. Starting with Grant Dawson, as you guys know, he is pretty much a pure wrestler. On the feet, he will kick a lot, and then he'll try to use his overhand to set up takedowns. His kicks are actually surprisingly technical. His punches, however, are, you can tell he's not comfortable in that range, to say the absolute least. He will shoot on either a single or double leg, and he is very comfortable chaining until he has dominant position. You can tell that he trains with Gamrot despite a different style, because they do a lot of the same things regarding manipulating like your foot in leg position to help secure the takedown over time. He has ridiculous grip strength that lets him chain more easily than most people, because once he has like a hand on your foot or leg, he just does not lose that grip no matter what. His biggest problem, of course, as you guys were saying, is that he is insanely chinny and can be knocked out by effectively anything, which is not really something you can fix. Moving on to Rębecki. Rębecki is a very aggressive finisher from all positions. On the feet, he will use his jab and inside calf kicks repetitively at range. When he enters, it's usually with the overhand. He has a very small reach for the weight class, so he does need to get in close to hit you. He is a bit of a brawler, and he is very hittable. He's like very willing to take one to give one, or sometimes take three to give one. When he does shoot, it's mainly opportunistic double legs. On the ground, he will do a little bit of damage and then chase submissions from there. Now, I have a very unpopular take on this fight, which is that, well, obviously I could see Rębecki getting like an early knockout or something. That's always possible. I think Dawson's going to absolutely maul him, and I think he's going to finish him in round 3. Because Rębecki is already known for slowing down and for not being the most technical. And that is the perfect matchup for someone who has a very single-minded wrestling game plan to just exploit repetitively. Because as Rębecki decides to run in and close the distance because he has a tiny reach for the weight class, Dawson's just going to reach down, grab his leg, and put him on his back. And that's going to happen over and over. And we know Rębecki is going to death gas. And when he death gasses, Dawson's going to get the finish. So I am going to pick Dawson by submission here. And I honestly don't think it's going to be nearly as competitive as people think it will be. All right, moving on to Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. And I will put a poll for that. Rębecki defending takedowns from Oralby. Yes, but I do believe Dawson is a better wrestler than Oralby in all honesty. And that was lightweight Oralby, who was significantly worse than welterweight Oralby. Didn't he win round 3 against Oralby? Yeah, he did. But that was a very compromised Oralby who also gassed very hard at 155. Which fighter on this card would you pick to win, even if they got hit by a car like Gordon? I mean, actually got hit by a car or got hit by a car like Gordon? Because that's very different here. I hate Amosov, I don't know why. Fair enough, I guess. Dawson might have such a bad chin that it's his elbow finish. Possible. Amosov is generally such a weak grappler. He's pretty good, yeah. What are your thoughts on Olafway, lightweight champion, calling out Ilya? I mean, who cares? Alright, Alvarez is a mild favorite here, despite him being an underdog. Alright, so starting with Amosov, he is very well-rounded, but he definitely prefers to be grappling. On the feet, he's a very flowing striker. He doesn't really snap things, so he doesn't carry much power in all honesty, but he will mix things up with calf kicks, head kicks, combos, etc. He's very good at disguising it because of how fluidly he goes from one to the other. He does try to use that flowing nature to chain into his wrestling. So he will throw punches and then you won't really know that the takedown is coming. He prefers to get to the body lock, but he is comfortable on shooting on shooting a single or double leg, I should say. Against actual strikers, he really does not like to strike, but he will strike more with wrestlers, interestingly. A problem for him is that whenever he has adversity and whenever his primary game plan isn't working, he definitely gets... I'm not going to say he gives up because he definitely doesn't, but he definitely seems to get discouraged and be a lot more content with a close fight or taking it slow and so on. We've seen it multiple times. Moving on to Alvarez. Alvarez is an aggressive finisher from pretty much all positions. On the feet, he starts out with the jab, then starts to slowly extend the combo. He'll throw out the 1-2, then eventually the 1-2-3, etc. He throws out a bunch of teeps and flying knees as he starts to get his reads. He doesn't shoot takedowns, but he is able to find a lot of subs regardless because of the fact that everyone else is trying to take him down. In the past, he didn't really defend any takedowns whatsoever, but he is starting to react to them a bit better, and I do think being at 170 will help him there in some capacity. On the feet, because he's used to having such a massive length advantage, his defense is very underdeveloped, and in all honesty, he gets hit a fair amount, but he does seem to have a solid chin, just based on the shots he was able to take from Luque alright. Now, this fight is kind of obvious in that it could go one of two ways, right? Like either Amosov just controls him for 15 minutes or Alvarez finds the kill shot at some point. I'm going to very mildly lean towards Alvarez TKO here because Amosov doesn't really have much of finishing threat on the ground. It's like, yeah, I know he finished Magny, but it's Magny. So generally speaking, Alvarez is going to have at least 3 chances in this fight to put out Amosov. Probably more because I don't think Amosov is just going to hold him down for 5 minutes, even if he gets the takedown on the first attempt. And Amosov tends to defensively just fade straight backwards. And Alvarez gets good at like extending with the straight very far, like much further than his opponents expected to come. So I could see Amosov trying to fade backwards and then just getting drilled by the straight anyways and getting put out like that. I could also see Joel being able to time the flying knee because Amosov has to like start with punches and then kind of like dip into the body lock in a weird way. And I'm just not sure that's going to work against someone with the power of Alvarez. So I am mildly leaning Alvarez TKO, as I said before. And yeah, we'll see what happens here. This should be an interesting one. Alright, I would always forget to do this, but luckily I have the slide now, so I'm not going to. If you guys are betting on this card and you're watching this breakdown, that means you guys are probably educated bettors and you're not just guessing at things. my betting service and all the tools in it were built for people like you. I have a lot of advanced algorithms that, in my opinion, are like the best UFC algorithms in the world that can help give you bets, also just give you percentages to make your own reads and make your own bets. There's also the new tool that I put in, which is basically going to plot out exactly how the fight is going to go, down to like the average number of takedowns a fighter is going to get, average number of strikes the fighter is going to land, how often they win in certain rounds, and so on. So that could be used for props, parlays, whatever you want to do with it. I also give deeper breakdowns in there. The community is great. Everyone will help you and so on. And unlike a lot of other handicappers, it's only $25 a month. So if you guys are interested in that, the URL is here and it's also in the description below. Always feel free to DM me with questions on Instagram and I will continue from here. All right. Moving on to Gautier versus Ozzy Diaz. I will put up a poll for this, although I expect it to be quite one-sided. All right, the poll is live. W self-plug, thank you. Why are you even putting up a poll? I mean, it's a formality. I'm doing it for all the other fights. Oracle advising the surfer and fails to mention that I will scare everyone away. You're a bit of an acquired taste for them, but everyone gets used to you eventually. Oral by versus Jacoby Smith. I'd probably lean oral by right now, just mildly. Ozzy Diaz via standing knee bar. Valid. Honestly, the poll is not as one-sided as I expected. Oh yeah, so regarding what you guys are talking about with the Luque fight for Alvarez, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Alvarez got a round 1 TKO because Luque was told that it was a legal shot and decided not to continue. So I don't know what the ref is doing. The fight should have been over at that point. All right, ending the poll here. Gautier only 72% with you guys, which is interesting. Obviously, that very much does not reflect the betting odds. So, starting with Gautier. Gautier is a power puncher with pretty much no nuance in his game whatsoever. He's just going to walk forward, try to use his speed and athleticism to land like a lunging 1-2. If he does get in the pocket, he'll focus a little more on landing the left hook. On the outside, he'll blast some hard round kicks. He has absolutely no idea how to cut the cage off, though, and a lot of his danger factor is gone after half a round. Even though he still hits hard, his speed diminishes, so it makes it a lot harder for him to knock you out. He does have decent takedown defense early in the fight out of pure athleticism, but if the fight gets down, he has absolutely no idea what he is doing. Overall, I have a very low opinion of Gautier. I feel like he's a fighter that rides purely off of his athleticism and has pretty much no skill whatsoever, in all honesty. Moving on to Ozzy Diaz. So Ozzy Diaz is more of an opportunistic striker. He will move around a fair amount on the outside and use his jab to try to get his range. Once he does start to get his reads, he'll open up a little more with counter crosses and hooks. He's generally speaking a reactive fighter. He's not going to throw proactively unless you really force him to. Even though he had a lot of finishes on the regional scene, it doesn't really seem to have carried over at the highest of levels, so now he is really more of a decision fighter. He is definitely a bit chinny. If he gets into trouble at all, he's probably going to end up getting finished, which will likely play a role here. So yeah, obviously, despite the fact that I don't have the highest opinion of Gautier, he should get around 1 TKO here. So yeah, we're going to say Gautier by TKO and move on from there, but I wouldn't mind if we saw something different, to say the least. All right, moving on to Bobby Green versus Jeremy Stephens. I will put up the poll here. He has that of pure hatred, fair enough. low opinion, but you have him number 6. I don't make the rankings by hand. If I made them by hands, that would be very different. The rankings are algorithmic, and I have a feeling I might also have a bug in how it's being represented at the end, because I don't think he would be 6 otherwise. All right, Bobby is at 88%. So this is what I expected for Gautier, not for Bobby, but fair enough. I'll leave this up another like 30 seconds more. So our stream's going to be Thursdays now. I'm still aiming for Tuesdays normally. I couldn't do it for this Tuesday because I was finishing up one of the updates with the algorithms, but now that that's done, I should be more free to do streams on Tuesdays. I'll take with Bobby by sub, maybe. Very possible. Green beats Esteban, you agree? Very possible. Yeah, I'd probably lean towards yes. He can change his name legally. His name is still Bobby. I don't care. Alright, we're ending the poll here at 83% for Bobby Green. Alright, so starting with Bobby. He is a volume striker who tends to rely on his cardio and just push the pace constantly. He does fight with his hands down and rely purely on head movement, so it's a little bit of a risky strategy to say the least. He will counter as his opponents come in and try to lunge in with jabs on the outside. He does actually have pretty underrated footwork. He's good at very deceptively closing a distance without people realizing he is getting closer. His head movement does get predictable though, so you can start to bait it out if you're good at making reads. And of course his chin is one of the more questionable in the game, which is also a trend tonight. We have a lot of southpaw strikers and we have a lot of very chinny fighters, which is an interesting combination to say the least. Moving on to Jeremy Stephens. So Jeremy is just an educated brawler, and educated may be a little bit generous to be honest. He throws a lot of calf kicks on the outside. He will pump out some jabs and crosses to the body, but generally speaking, he just wants to get in the pocket and spam hooks and overhands. He does have blast double legs, but he doesn't really go to them too frequently. His defense is to just maintain a high guard and pray that he doesn't get knocked out around it. He doesn't throw when backing up at all, so he needs to be moving forwards or just standing still in the pocket to do anything. Well, obviously, Stephens is always going to have the chance of getting a flatline knockout randomly. Bobby Green should pretty comfortably take a decision here. I'm not going to overcomplicate it too much. At this point in their careers, he's just a vastly better fighter. So yeah, Bobby Green by decision. I also would not be surprised with a late finish, but I do think that it will be a decision, just based on like Stephens' durability in general. All right, moving on to Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. Put up the poll for that. If you watch Bobby versus El Huber as a casual, you would think he's the goat of the sport. Valid. People forget, man, he slept the great Josh Emmett. That is true. Stephens versus Hilly is the fight to make, 100%. Nightmare of a fight to break down. Yeah, it's not my favorite fight to break down, but I do think that I have figured it out. You guys are very 50-50 on it so far. Buckley at 54%. Stephens getting subbed by Camera and not having been training grappling for a while makes me think Bobby sub. Well, he didn't get subbed by Mason Jones, and while I don't have the highest opinion of Mason Jones, he is pretty strong on the ground. But I also would not be surprised with Bobby sub. Alright, I'm going to end the poll here with Buckley at 58%, which is kind of surprising to me. But It is interesting. All right, so starting with Brady. Brady is, of course, a grappler. He can do other things, but that is what he wants to get to. On the feet, he will throw out a bunch of calf kicks against orthodox fighters or body kicks against southpaws. He will use the jab initially and try to use that to set up the left hook. He keeps a high guard and tries to use range at the same time to avoid getting hit. When he enters the pocket, he tends to throw hook combos and then clinch from there. In the clinch, he'll look for foot sweeps. If he is shooting from the outside, it will typically be on a double leg, and he does often set up his takedowns. He does often. What was I trying to say here? Oh, okay. What I meant to say is that he does often set up the takedowns with the overhand. That was a very weird phrasing what I used in my notes, but whatever. He is very slow though, and he is a little bit chinny. Obviously, we saw him get knocked out by pretty much nothing twice, and even though I do believe the Bilal fight was an early stoppage, you don't want to really be getting rocked by Bilal. I think he's the only person I can recall ever getting rocked by Bilal. Moving on to Buckley. Buckley is mainly an explosive striker. Generally speaking, he wants to get into the pocket and throw hard looping shots from there. My speaking is not doing well today. He throws mainly in bursts, so he's going to move around on the outside until he finds his timing to enter, throw a few shots, and then reset from there. His striking defense is mainly distance management combined with head movement. His takedown defense is mainly just trying to sprawl based off pure athleticism, but because of his need to full commit to his combinations, he's very vulnerable when he does commit to entering. Now, this fight was weird for me to predict because my initial instinct was Brady. Then I started thinking it might be a 50-50 because Brady is so damn slow that it feels like this is a fight where Buckley could catch him. Even if the takedown threat is there, it's okay, is Brady ever going to end up getting the fight down with how slow he is? Because not everyone's just going to stand in front of you and let you take you down like Edwards did. That being said, when I went and watched the tape of Buckley, I started realizing his striking kind of sucks. Yes, he did knock out Wonderboy, but he was losing most of the exchanges in that fight, and it felt like he only really landed because Wonderboy's age was slowing down. He's a little too reliant on his movement defense still, and it doesn't really work at that age. But his striking otherwise is just so lacking in precision and setup and any level of nuance that I don't think he can compete at this level. So I am going to pick Brady by submission here because I think even on the feet, it's going to look a lot more competitive than people are expecting. And then once Buckley has gotten tagged a few times, I think Brady's going to have a much easier time setting up the takedown. And then on the ground, obviously, even though Buckley is training with Usman and whatever, he's not going to make up for a 5-year, that's being generous, maybe a 10-year discrepancy in the grappling, within half a year or whatever it is. I feel like people also are kind of forgetting the fact that Usman was doing better in the striking in the earlier rounds than you would want to see from Buckley. Part of the reason why Buckley got taken down in round 1 is because he got kind of hurt by one of Usman's jabs and then started backing upwardly and then ended up getting taken down from there. So yeah, Brady by submission. And in all honesty, I don't know if I know Buckley has mainly trains in a smaller gym, and that might be why his skill set is so weird. But unless he completely flips that around, I don't think he'll ever be anything in this division, in all honesty. All right, moving on to Volkov versus Acosta. I'll put a poll for this. Wonderboy slowing down, but Bonfim lost Wonderboy. I believe. All kinds of Wonderboy. I think that more so came down to a weird matchup issue. And don't get me wrong, Wonderboy's still good, especially in his anti-grappling. But yeah, it was not a good performance from Bonfim. Brady has basically no threat on the feet. You can see Buckley easily pushing forwards and not taking any steps backwards. The problem is that's not Buckley's style at all. If he's able to completely rework his style for this fight, then fair play to him, but that's just not how he fights generally. I think Buckley showed good takedown defense before he was mid-fight. Colby struggled to take him down. I mean, I still feel like Colby was full-blown washed at that point, in all honesty. Prime Usman or Ian Gary? Probably Ian Gary, realistically. All right, we are at 62% for Volkov. Hey, draw for Sparta. All right, I will end the poll here at 62%. Okay. So, starting with Volkov, Volkov is, of course, mainly just a rangy kickboxer. He's going to throw out a lot of jabs and kicks at distance and force his opponent to try to enter. He will stand straight up with his full height and sit down on the cross or knees as his opponent tries to enter to catch them as they come in. He does have wrestling, but it's more so opportunistic body locks and double legs if his opponent really extends. He has pretty bad takedown defense in all reality. He just has slow reaction times to things, which, I mean, we saw getting taken down however many times against Almeida. If you can get into the pocket with him when he's vulnerable, because his only defense is range, he's just going to get tagged repetitively. Moving on to Waldo. Waldo is good at mixing things up and has underrated focus on his game planning at this point. After the Sergey loss, it really feels like it just flipped a switch in him and he started taking the sport a lot more seriously. On the outside, he throws a lot of jabs and calf kicks. Depending on the fight, he'll either pressure more or back up to the fence and force his opponent to come to him. He's generally looking to land a big left hook or right overhand. He will mix in blast doubles when he needs to, depending on the matchup. He also has a pretty crazy chin. He was taking shots from Pavlovich that would have put most people away and just did not care whatsoever. He uses a lot of head movement defensively. He is one of the more athletic heavyweights to say the least. Now, this fight is interesting because it's hard to predict how Waldo is going to approach it. Waldo could start with takedowns and try to use that to open other stuff up. He could throw them in later to try to secure rounds. Like there are many different approaches depending on if he's looking for a knockout or a decision win or what the goal here is overall. I generally speaking though, just think Waldo and his team are a lot smarter than Volkov and his. And with that and Waldo having a massive power advantage, I'm going to lean Waldo by TKO here. I think that he is going to find the shot sometime over the 15 minutes, and he's shown over his last 3 fights that he does have the one-shot knockout power to finish it if he does land once now. The other issue for Volkov is, again, just standing so straight up, is just begging to get hit by overhands. Like, Lewis landed the overhand for a reason, and obviously Volkov has gotten much better, but it's still a stylistic thing. And Waldo is just a more athletic person than Derek Lewis by far, and has the same overhand. So I could see Waldo sleeping Volkov off of that same overhand, like, especially as Volkov slows down later in the fight. So yeah, Waldo by TKO, but it should be an interesting one. All right, moving on to the co-main event, Josh Van versus Tatsuro Taira. His one-shot knockouts were against guys with no chins who are far worse than Volkov. I think Gaziev's chin is far better than Volkov's, in all honesty. I know Gaziev gets hit a fair amount. I would say that Volkov's defense is much better than Gaziev's, but I would say Gaziev's chin is far better. Volkov is 100% the best fighter he'll have fought in a while. That's not the question. But if he lands, he's going to put Volkov away. Yeah, I agree about the Lewis fight. That was MMA. Taira's at a 70-ish% right now. This is somewhat aligns with the odds, even though the odds have slowly moved towards Van throughout the week. All right, we will end the poll at Taira 67%. All right, starting with Josh Van. Josh Van is pretty much a pure boxer. He will just throw in other things randomly. Or I shouldn't say randomly. He does throw them in intelligently, but it's definitely not his primary game plan, let's put it that way. He does have some of the most technical boxing in the UFC. He will start combinations, slip mid combo, and then continue from there. He did use a lot of body work early in his career. He has definitely reduced the naked body work to improve defense. He is at his best when countering, and his left hook has gotten very efficient. He is adaptable and will throw in the takedowns or leg kicks. He was throwing the side kicks to the knee of Royval constantly, so he definitely does adapt based on the opponent and what is happening during the fight. I will say though, despite him being champion, he's still extremely untested. Like, the number of good fighters we've seen him against are like one, I guess. Like, because I don't count the Pantoja fight as seeing him against a good fighter because we didn't see anything. So he only fought Royval, and while he did very clearly beat Royval, I mean, it's Royval, and while Royval is cool, unfortunately, he's not the best. Moving on to Taira. Taira is obviously an amazing wrestler and grappler. On the feet, he is not going to rush. He's just going to focus on kicks and singular straight shots. He doesn't really throw in combinations, which is a little bit of a risk with his lack of head movement. He's usually just looking to aim the right cross, and he does have a lot more power in it than people realize. One fun fact about this fight, Taira and Van have dropped the same number of opponents in the UFC. When he's wrestling, he'll shoot, then try to get to the body lock, and then the back from there. It is very similar to Chimaev in that sense. It is just a more technical version of it. He will use a variety of takedowns, but of course, because his ultimate goal is to establish back control, he doesn't really care what he starts with at all. If he ends up on top, he'll slowly progress and deal damage. He doesn't really rush anything. He's going to use the ground and pound explicitly to progress position. It's a very methodical approach, and he has like a system on the ground that works to always get to perfect position, even if he can't find the sub initially. He will eventually take slight risks for the subs, but they are very calculated, and he won't really go for it unless he feels like he has it. You guys know my opinion of Taira, and while I don't like that Van got so much hate for celebrating when he literally changed his life, I still don't think Van is like anywhere near the same level as Taira realistically. Even if this fight was purely on the feet, while I would of course favor Van, I don't think it would be as one-sided as people expect, because Taira has significantly more power and he does have the ability to use it. Van's defense is a little bit better, but he does get clipped a lot more than anyone wants to seem to admit. And of course, because of the fact that he is a volume striker, he is constantly putting himself at risk, which is how even against Chiras, he ended up almost getting knocked out when looking for the finish himself. So I think that Taira is going to be able to be competitive enough on the feet that Van is going to have to focus on it, and then it's going to make the takedowns easy. And if Taira is able to get a singular takedown, I don't see Van being the same, even if he is able to get up after that. Because seeing what Taira did to Moreno, and yes, Moreno is not what he fully was in the past, but his grappling is still extremely legitimate. And as soon as Taira got one actual takedown, he mauled him. Regardless of early stoppage or not, the fight was not going to last much longer. So if Taira gets a takedown on a much worse grappler in Van, I mean, he's very likely not going to survive, and even if he does, he will have taken enough damage that I don't think he's going to be able to survive the next time. So yeah, I'm going to take Taira by submission. I think he is going to make it look quite easy, and I've been saying for several years now that Taira is going to be a champion, and I believe that time is now. All right, moving on to the main event. Khamzat Chimaev versus Strickland. I'll put up the poll for that. Taira does tend to slow down when his takedowns do gets it first. I mean, that was more so in a singular fight. I get what you're saying, but it was his first 5-round fight. And I do believe that, especially these young fighters, when they get far very quickly, a loss does help them a fair amount. .64% for Chimaev, which isn't overwhelmingly high. Taira's actually shown improvements in striking, though. It's cutting angles, strikes. Yeah, I agree there. Do you think Van is fully healed from his injury? I have no idea what his injury was, in all honesty, so it's very hard to say. Did he land the right hand on Van, or is Van too good for that? I mean, Taira definitely could land it. 5 is down to 58%. That's interesting. Talking about Royval is not good, but when talking about same Royval dog talking. There's a difference between losing to Royval on the feet and on the ground, right? Or not losing, but not being able to finish him, right? Royval is not the most defensively responsible on the feet. He's a much better grappler than he is striker. So, like, we've seen Kop run through Royval on the feet, realistically. And on the ground, like, even though Pantoja subbed him the first time, even Pantoja, at the point in his career he was at in the second fight, couldn't get very close to a finish. So, a young fighter going against, as a pure grappler, going against Royval is going to struggle more than someone who's very good in the striking against Royval. So that's why that is remarkably different there. All right, 62% for Chimaev right now. We'll end the poll there. All right, so we'll start with Strickland. Strickland is a pressure-oriented fighter. Even if he doesn't look like it, a lot of people think that because he isn't throwing the highest amount of volume, like with power, that he isn't applying pressure, but he will typically move forward constantly. Because of the fact that he has a very strong jab, he will utilize that to generate pressure. He will either push you back with it or force you to move into it constantly. His best attribute is, of course, his defense. He's great at blocking with his shoulders and using the modified Philly shell to rarely get hit clean. He does have a much more legitimate ground game than people realize because he did start as a grappler. He has very good fundamentals in terms of getting back off the ground. He does basically everything correct. He doesn't love striking off the back foot, but he has definitely gotten better at circling and using that to make sure that he is never like backing up too much that it's stopping him from throwing. Moving on to Chimaev. Chimaev is a chain wrestler, of course. He, generally speaking, is going to shoot nearly immediately. He will strike for 20, 30 seconds, get you in the rhythm of that, and then look to change levels. He likes to use a distraction shot before he shoots. So oftentimes he'll throw the head kick and then immediately shoot, or he'll just feint high with the punch and then immediately shoot. He will shoot for the double leg and try to like shoot through where the opponent is, not where they actually are. But then he will grab the single leg if he misses and try to work to the back from there. If you get to the fence, he will either put in a traditional hook or he'll do something a little bit atypical and put in like a hook with the opposite leg to try to control your posture from there. Generally speaking, he wants to work to the rear naked choke, but he will also go to darces and other submissions if he needs to. When he is on the feet from southpaw, he is extremely jab heavy. He can sit down on it and actually hurt people with it. He does tend to switch to orthodox and then throw his calf kick immediately from there. He gets very predictable with his patterns in the stand-up. He also will brawl in the pocket and throw from the hips if it gets there. And of course, the notorious cardio issue does exist. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, he proved against DDP the cardio issue doesn't exist. I don't agree with that. Is his cardio potentially a little bit improved? Sure, that's possible. But he basically laid on DDP for 4 rounds, expended 0 cardio whatsoever, and then still gassed out and almost got finished in round 5. So I'm not buying the narrative that Chimaev actually secretly has good cardio, because he's demonstrated every time he has to go late, regardless of how much energy he expended or not, that he is going to slow down. Now, this fight was a little bit weird for me to predict, because my first thought is that if Chimaev was gassing that badly against DDP in round 5, what's going to happen if he has to shoot twice as many takedowns in the fight? Because while Strickland's probably doesn't have as good pure, or I shouldn't even say that. Let's put it this way. While Strickland isn't as strong as DDP is, he's a lot more technical in how he both defends takedowns and gets up afterwards. So if Strickland is able to get up multiple times in round 1, and same in round 2, same in round 3, well, by round 4, this fight is going to look very different, and I expect Chimaev to really start slowing down a lot faster than he did against DDP, potentially lose the last 3 rounds, or even get finished late. Now, that being said, that is reliant on Strickland being able to get up, because if he can't get up, the same thing's going to happen as it did with DDP. And of course, it's reliant on him not getting submitted. So, after I did tape extensively, what I started realizing is that while Strickland is very technical and does a lot of the right things, Strickland's also is not very explosive early, to say the least. So he's just going to do the right things, but probably a little slower than he needs to in this fight. Because of that, I could see Chimaev getting to dominant position more easily than he hypothetically should based off of the skill difference, where Strickland's a lot closer to him in skill than DDP was. Because of that, I do think he is likely going to be able to secure at least 3 rounds and not slow down enough that he gets finished. So I am picking Chimaev by decision here, begrudgingly. I will say there is also the chance of an early submission despite Strickland being a good grappler, because the fact that Strickland is going to try to scramble back to his feet, which is very different from DDP, who, while he did try to scramble, he was very willing to kind of accept position early, combined with the whole speed disadvantage, can definitely lead towards opportunities opening up that I wouldn't have expected just purely based on, as I was saying before, skill for skill. I hate picking Chimaev because, I mean, he's like, maybe not top 3, but he's probably top 5 worst people in the UFC, like just as a person. But I do think that he should probably get this done. So yeah, I am going to pick Chimaev by decision. I'll obviously be hard rooting for Strickland. I mean, any semi-sane person is going to at this point. But yeah, Chimaev decision, potentially first round submission, but I am officially picking decision. Valid take, thank you. Main event curse, please. One can hope. Did you see a Chimaev 48-47 or what? That's what I'm leaning towards. I could see it being like a 49-46 as well. I just think that if this is going into the later rounds, Chimaev is going to have less of an advantage than he would have had against DDP, because despite the fact that Strickland himself has better cardio than DDP, Strickland, again, also is likely going to be able to stand up more in the earlier rounds than DDP was able to. Strickland, not a great guy either. I mean, regardless of anyone's opinions of Strickland, there's a massive difference between someone like Strickland and someone like Chimaev. Like, Chimaev is just objectively, by all standards, a terrible person. Are you going to react to the previous card? Yeah, sure, we'll get to that. And for the people saying that Chimaev does not have a choice about being friends with Kadyrov, and however you say his name, I always forget, he 100% has a choice. His family is all out of Chechnya for a long time ago. He voluntarily went back to Chechnya for like the money, the fame, and all of that. So yeah, no, Chimaev is just voluntarily friends with like literally one of the worst people on the planet, which says a lot. I still think DDP is the only guy to beat Chimaev. That's very possible. We should be happy if Khamzat gets brutally robbed. I mean, it would be funny. I mean, if Chimaev loses in any capacity, I'll be happy. I don't care if it's a DQ. I mean, preferably he gets knocked out. But I will take any loss for Chimaev. How do any of you know what his situation is? Because it's all publicly recorded. It's not hard to find in his case. I will go on to the final slide before I forget. Once again, same promo as before. If you guys are betting on this card, if you guys are watching this video, then you are probably an educated bettor, so you will probably find uses for my tools and my deeper analysis. It's only $25 a month. It'll get you access to the best UFC betting algorithms, some of the best tools there are, and of course a community that I have very much grown to appreciate, to say the absolute least. So feel free to DM me on Instagram if you have questions. Link is in the description here and, of course, on the screen in front of you. Now to get back to questions. Yeah, I don't like that Gaethje hung out with Kadyrov either, to say the least. Did you see Khabib is scamming again? Yeah, it's just I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Obviously, I don't want to generalize based off people's regions and stuff. And I do believe there are, of course, like good Dagestanis, like some of the fighters as well. I think Ikram Liskrov seems like a great guy. There are a few of them, but Khabib and Chimaev like really carry how difficult it is to not generalize when it comes to that region, because like most of their fighters are just terrible people. What's worse, Dagestani fans or Chechen friends? Probably Dagestani fans. Even Pyotr Yan is scamming. Yeah, it's a lot of the Russian fighters in general. I think it's more Daggies and Chechens than, just percentage-wise, technically, than Russians. How was Ikram able to negate Khamzat's takedowns? What made it so hard for Khamzat to take him down? See, this is what really bothers me when fighters are, I mean, fighting anyone, but fighting Chimaev specifically, is they seem to have not game plans at all for his actual skill set. It's very strange, because all you have to do is watch the Ikram fight and know what you should build your game plan around and then evolve from that. Usman also had a lot of success against Chimaev's takedowns for a reason. Basically, when Chimaev shoots initially, a lot of the time he doesn't actually get the initial takedown. The initial takedown is just to set up a better angle for the second takedown or the reshoot. So if you're able to control his upper body when he shoots the first time, he can't reshoot. And from there, you're able to eventually disengage. So Ikram, basically, when Chimaev shot, he just grabbed onto the overhook, turned it into a whizzer, and just held on to that for dear life. And Chimaev could not do anything until he was forced to disengage. Usman didn't do it initially, but then in round 2, he adjusted and went for the chest wrap instead. And the chest wrap, while requiring more precision to get than just the overhook, completely kills your upper body mobility whatsoever. So from there, Chimaev could not chain wrestle at all. Dagestani fans don't even watch the sport for the most part. That is true. Wonder if we'd see the scamming happening as much if the UFC actually reinvested the Paramount deal in the fighter paychecks. I mean, they did, though. I mean, pretty much everyone's pay went up, so. I still think that the pay for the new guys is the biggest problem. But the top fighters are getting paid reasonably. I still wish they got paid more, but reasonably at least. Volkov does seem like a pretty good guy. Yeah, I mean, I think Volkov is fine. Obviously, there are Russian fighters that seem cool, but they definitely have the highest propensity of PEDs and of scamming. Sending that fight to DDP and the Usman fight valid. The day these daggers are out of the sport will be a good day again. Yeah, that's fair. It's like Ikram is cool, but I don't know. I can't find I can't think of any other daggy who's like a great person. I mean, I think like Said Nurmagomedov, like there's nothing wrong with him. Sean is the type of guy to notice Ikram's strategy and add to his gameplay. Yeah, very possible. Like Eric Nixick is not I've rubber banded on Eric Nixick a few times. I think for some reason his fighters just don't execute, but I do think he is quite intelligent because he is very willing to adjust his game plan and add things to it specifically. So I do think Eric Nixick is going to give him a good game plan, and I do think that Strickland at this point in his career is much more keen on following the game plan. I don't know if it's going to matter just because of the speed discrepancy, but I hope it does. Pavlovich is probably a chill dude. Yeah, seems like it. How would a middleweight Marab and Jan do against Khamzat the same size? I mean, generally speaking, the smaller fighter is always better, so it's kind of like an unfair comparison at that point, to be honest. Why can't we just Angela Hill and distribute her ridiculous generous salary among some entertaining players? I mean, they used her to build Fatima Klein, so I didn't hate that angle in all honesty. Islam Makhachev is pretty chill. I mean, not really. I mean, his history isn't exactly pleasant to say the least. I'll answer your question later, Wanderer. Why do UFC fans seem to have much more parasocial relationships to fighters more than other sports? Mainly because fighters interact more so with the audience than in other sports they will, because in other sports they are very worried about PR, so the athletes are supposed to have very limited interaction in general, and any interaction they do have is very sanitized. And UFC fighters can actually express their their actual personality and such. So it gets people more attached in that sense. Did the Extreme Couture coach reach out and ask for help with Sean against Khamzat at some point? He did not explicitly ask for my help on this one, but I do know that he watches my videos, so who knows what he's incorporating or not. Hypothetically, Van stuffs the takedowns, get us from Taira. Who do you think wins a strike? I mean, if it's like 25 minutes of striking, yeah, I do think Van will take that. Explain why Islam Makhachev history isn't pleasant. I mean, the terrorist affiliations, the promoting of like killing people, I mean, he's done a lot of weird stuff. The constant cheating in the UFC, the PEDs. I mean, he's not a great guy. How would Leon have done against Khamzat? Not well. I say run the Granny Val versus crossover. Fair. Good team McLean, very new future champ. Yeah, 100%. No choice but to hang out with Warlords. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but Islam said some funny things in broken English, so you have to like fair. Plus, UFC has actual storylines, so you see when fighters dislike each other too. That is true, yes. UFC fighters are responsible for marketing themselves while other sports have their team push. Yes, true. How does Imavov do against Chimaev, Sean, and DDP? I think that Imavov is always really going to struggle against Sean just because of his defensive abilities. Imavov versus DDP is a very 50-50. I do think Chimaev would beat Imavov, but I'm also not wildly confident. What terrorist affiliations? I mean, if you want to research it yourself, it's all over the internet. When did he promote killing? This was a thing, like, was it 5 years ago? It was an issue. It was an interreligion issue. If you just look up, like, I forget, I always blank on the which is which within Islam or whatever, but he essentially did something that promoted killing, like the opposite or something. Trust Liam would have beaten Khamzat on 170 by round head kick. Valid. After getting screamed at again. Impact. I don't know what you want me to say. You can look it up. He has very well documented terrorist affiliations. We're not going to read the articles on stream, but it's all over the internet. You know what I'm referring to? Yeah, good. Okay. Impact is LA confirmed. Yeah. No, I'm not talking about the guy that trained at his gym. I'm talking about the fact that like him and Khabib were literally bankrolled by known terrorists for years. There's plenty of information on this. Are you going to recap the previous card? Yes, I should do that. I gotta open it up. Let me find this. This isn't about Kadrilov. He's not the person I'm even talking about. This is a very weird diversion here. Okay, so recapping previous events. Here we go. So starting with Cody Steele versus Don Marfan. I will say, I missed the takedown. I was out of the room when the takedown happened, so I didn't see how easy the takedown was or not. I do need to look back at that at some point. But fair play to Cody Steele because evidently he improved his wrestling enough to get the takedown, where in the past he just had no wrestling whatsoever. So I still don't know why Vaughn decided it was a great idea to initiate wrestling more so and try to take the back multiple times against a BJJ practitioner. But fair play to Cody Steele for fighting the submission, but just embarrassingly bad game planning for Vaughn. Alright, moving on to Michaela versus Grimbo. So, a lot of people were confused about the split. I actually thought round 1 was really, really close, so I don't blame this for being a split whatsoever. Mikhailov is weird because he's both good and terrible at the same time. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like I think that he has so much willpower that he wills himself through certain fights in certain positions, but like technically on the feet he's not necessarily, or even in the wrestling, he's just not necessarily where he needs to be to go much further. That being said, he's never in a boring fight, but he really has to dial in like his agility and movements in all honesty to go much further. Grimbo, they could probably cut from the UFC at this point. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to be anything, and he's just not useful enough for anything. But Mikhailov, I mean, he definitely needs to be slowly built if they want him to be a star in that region and such. Moving on to Wes Schultz versus Ben Johnston. This is top 5 most embarrassing fights I've seen in the UFC. Johnston should not be in the UFC. He's one of the worst people ever signed to the UFC. Wes Schultz, I have a little more leeway to because he won and he got the knockdown and at least he was going for finishes nonstop. But, I mean, I guess he's kind of young, so he has time to improve and he has talents. But I don't know what that wrestling was. I don't know how he was like a relatively good wrestler in college or whatever, because his takedowns are really bad. His grappling, on the other hand, is fine. And on the feet, he's actually better than I think I even expected. But his grappling is just, I don't even know what, sorry, his wrestling rather. I don't even know what to say about that. Johnston was not interested in fighting. He just wanted to lay on top the entire fight and do 0 damage whatsoever. So yeah, just cut him immediately, please. I hope he was only given a 1-fight contract because that was just atrocious. I technically got my prediction right. I said Wes Schultz submission. He got a submission, so I'll take it. But yeah, that was a fight. Colby Thickness versus Vince Morales. Colby looked really good in round 1. Obviously, he was very close on multiple submissions. Morales is a good BJJ practitioner. He hasn't gotten subbed, at least in a long time. I don't know if he's ever gotten subbed, actually. I did not expect Thickness to get that close to a submission at any point in this fight when Rosas couldn't. But, I mean, he looked really good in round 1. Unfortunately, it seemed like he full gassed after round 1 and was kind of useless after that. That being said, he still stayed composed enough to win round 2 on the feet, so fair play there. Round 3 was kind of atrocious, but that is what it is. Vince Morales is always game, despite the fact that he has not won a UFC fight in a very long time. I still don't feel like you have to cut him because he's still making very, very competitive fights with genuine prospects. Give him 1 or 2 more because these are entertaining fights against prospects where he's actually testing. So good on both of them for providing an entertaining fight, even if round 2 is a little bit slow. Thickness needs a very, very slow rise because he has talent, but on the feet, he just kind of looks terrified a lot of the time. Moving on to Malkoun versus Gerald Meerschaert. So, I don't care what the judges say. Meerschaert won this fight. He very obviously took round 1. And round 3, he had the most significant moments with the mounted guillotine. I don't know how you don't give him the round after being very close to finishing the fight for a good 30 seconds and would have finished it if it continued. So I do actually feel like Gerald got robbed there. And this was a terribly embarrassing performance from Malkoun. Malkoun, first of all, is always going to be boring, because if you're not trying to finish GM3, you're not going to try to finish any. So at this point, it's like, what is his worth in the UFC? He's a mid fighter. He's very boring. He is just, I don't know. Like, I know they're not going to actually cut him because obviously he's on a win streak and whatever. But this is one of those performances that just makes me feel like, just cut him. Like, we don't need to see him around. And what was he, like a minus 1,200 favorite? And this guy is just throwing like one jab out over every like 30, 40 seconds against GM3. Terrible. Moving on to Junior Tafa versus Kevin Christian. Yeah, Kevin Christian is one of the worst fighters who's ever been signed to the UFC. Tafa still almost managed to lose because, if you guys remember, I was saying last week that he's gotten TKO'd by leg kicks twice, and he still decided it was a good idea to never attempt to fix that. So he wasn't that far from it happening again, but luckily for him, Kevin Christian sucks at everything and just got hit by whatever strikes Tafa through. So Tafa survives another day in the UFC, but he is really not a good fighter. Who has worse calf kick defense, Tafa or JDM? Tafa, I guess, but JDM's not that much better in all honesty. I have a Georgian quiz in 1 hour. I'm cooked. That might be a little rough. How do you get finished by 2026, Tafa? Yeah, I have no idea. All right, moving on to Cam Roston versus Robert Bryczek. Roston looked good. And even though I picked him by decision, I was perfectly right in that sense. He looked far more dominant than I expected. I was thinking there might be a dicey moment where he gets clipped or something. He was just better at everything here. He was good at maintaining range on the outside. He got the takedowns when he wanted them. He wasn't able to get like the submission or anything, but he was able to work pretty effectively on top. So Roston improved a lot from his last fight, or Brundage is just a lot better than we give him credit for. Both are very possible here. It's an interesting dynamic, I guess you would say. I don't know. All right, moving on to Sutherland versus Tuivasa. Funniest underdog pick I got of this card, Sutherland by decision. So, yeah, I was right in that you just can't pick Tuivasa to win a fight, because Tuivasa is just not a fighter. He's literally just a brawler who shows up in the UFC without training and just prays that swinging wildly does enough. He has no takedown defense. He has no stand-up defense. All he has is big hooks that he hopes do enough, and the occasional elbow. So you gotta cut Tuivasa, right? He's on like what, a 6-7 fight losing streak? I don't know what the hell he's doing. Sutherland, on the other hand, he looked better than I expected, which I know is weird to say because Tuivasa sucks, right? But I wasn't expecting Sutherland to hit a spinning back elbow into a knee combination and then hit like the grappling transitions that he was on the ground. So a lot of people are being like, oh, cut Sutherland. I mean, Sutherland, for a few days' notice, looked amazing. So give Sutherland like an actual full camp for his next fight, and let's see what he can do against a decent opponent. I don't know. It wasn't the most fun fight in rounds 2 and 3, but it was a good performance from him. All right. Moving on to Brando Pericic versus Shamil Gaziev. This was a very sloppy round 1. I think you guys saw what I meant about Pericic just not having good defense whatsoever. Still got my prediction right of Pericic's TKO, but he's so hittable. And Gaziev just doesn't even have defense. He just takes shots on the chin. But Pericic, like, before he fights someone actually good, needs to fix his defense. And he also needs to fix how he throws punches, because he just doesn't actually, like, use his hips in his punches whatsoever. He's throwing arm punches all the time. He should have put Gaziev away 3 or 4 times in round 1 alone. I don't know how he managed to not do that. Anyways, moving on to Rahiki versus Schmidt. So I refused to break this fight down, for those of you who were here last week probably remember, because it was just insulting. Like, Rahiki TKO was very obvious, and like, why are we signing a 4-2 guy who got finished in both of his losses? Like, what are we doing? I don't know. Rahiki, I will say, looked improved, right? I mean, even though he was fighting someone terrible, I liked Rahiki's movement a lot more. I liked his defense more. I liked his setups more. So, fair play to him. It does look like he's getting better. This matchup, though, was just an abomination. All right. Moving on to Steve Erceg versus Tim Elliott. Interesting fight. Erceg is still way too hittable. I can't see Erceg going any further in the division, in all honesty. He just still hasn't improved at all. But he is technical enough that he's going to beat a guy like Tim Elliott, so fair play, he got it done. I mean, there's not much I could really say, in all honesty, other than, like, yeah, I mean, Erceg is a solid mid-level flyweight. Elliott is just old, so he can't do much at a certain point. It feels like his cardio starts slowing down near the end of fights now, where it didn't in the past. It is what it is. Relatively fun fight overall. All right. Wait, how did Pericic versus Gautier get fight of the night? What? Like, even Erceg versus Elliott would have been a better fight of the night. Oh, no, I misread that. Okay, it was Pericic versus Gautier. That makes more sense. It's very sloppy, but whatever. Okay, anyways. Moving on to Selkild versus Dariush. So I think you guys saw the vision for 3 minutes about it. I mean, Dariush dropped him with the jab, was more technical at range, was holding him against the fence, kind of getting the takedowns. I felt like he could have done that for 3 minutes, and then Dariush decides that he needs to brawl for absolutely no reason and gets knocked out. I don't know what to say. I still don't hate my Dariush by decision prediction. I feel like he could have just replicated that game plan for 3 rounds and won. He just, I don't know what he was doing. But fair play to Selkild. Selkild did what he needed to do. I still think Selkild sucks. I mean, we saw him get dropped by 50-year-old Dariush with a jab, and then get controlled against the fence for 3 minutes. Like, Selkild is just not a good fighter. I don't know what else to say. Like, he's like a mid-range lightweight, maybe edge of the rankings, maybe right outside the rankings. But, like, Garamad is going to walk through Selkild. He could knock Selkild out. He could submit Selkild. He could do whatever he wants to do to Selkild. All right. Going to move on to Carlos Prates versus JDM. I mean, Prates looked good. I mean, there's not much I could say there. Prates gets more and more dangerous on the front foot. Even though I still do criticize the way he moves on the back foot, and I feel like he can get backed up easily and moves out predictably. If you are not abusing that constantly, he's just going to destroy you, because at range, he is a menace. I do think that JDM probably had his confidence kind of killed by the Islam fight, because he was not throwing like he should have been. I don't know if he's just really bad at sticking to a game plan, or if his coaches gave him an atrocious game plan. It's hard to say which is which. But he should not have been exchanging with Prates at range. He should have never been backing up in this fight. The way he had to fight if he wanted to win this was move forwards at all costs. Both of them have crazy chins, in all fairness. JDM took some massive shots. Prates took some massive shots and walked it off pretty much. So that is impressive toughness from both of them. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, JDM's future is very rough here. I don't know if he's gonna be able to rebound in any capacity. Prates, I feel like you've got to do the Morales fight, because the whole talk of, like, Islam fighting him next is stupid, because everyone knows Islam is gonna sub him in round 1 if that happens, right? Like, obviously, I'm a massive Makhachev hater, but I mean, Islam Makhachev subs him in round 1 like 90% of the time, in my opinion. It's just Prates has no takedown defense, and even on the ground, he gives up his back way too easily. Ian Gary is a much more interesting fight. Even Morales is a much more interesting fight. But Prates versus Morales would be really fun. So I really do think that has to be next. JDM, if Bonfim beats Bilal, which I do expect him to, then that should be JDM's next fight, in my opinion. And unfortunately, I do expect Bonfim to beat JDM as well if he is able to beat Bilal, but we will see what happens. So JDM might be kind of screwed. If I am JDM's manager here, I'm asking for a massive step down in competition. Like, who are some people he could fight? Like, I'm asking for maybe like an Uros Medic type of fighter, or maybe like a Mike Malott or something. Like, go far down the rankings and be like, let's just get a win back, because he could probably beat those two. Maybe even like maybe even an Amosov if he were to like beat Joel Alvarez or something. How did Amosov get ranked? Okay, whatever. But yeah, point being is that JDM really, really needs to take that step down. Otherwise, his career just Malott is very winnable. Medic, I'd be concerned. Yeah, Medic could beat him. I just think that he'd be able to counter Medic, to be honest. Cortes versus Topuria. And Topuria was sleeping. Yeah, I'd pick Bonfim against JDM. Yeah, exactly. JDM needs to find a new gym. I agree. Yeah. JDM versus D-Rod. Yeah, that would be a good fight for JDM to do. Maybe Edwards. Yeah, that's possible as well. And JDM still beats Islam, maybe with a completely different team and completely reworked game plan. I can low-key see Leon beating JDM cost like body and head. I don't think so, just because I don't think Leon can win a fight at this point, not gonna lie, but I mean, it's possible. Islam versus Bonfim. Honestly, I'd have to go back and watch Bonfim tape. I don't remember how good he is or not, but from the Wonder Boy fight, I can't say I'm overly enthusiastic. Rahiki versus McMillan. Rahiki would kill McMillan. Like, McMillan's not very good. He's just entertaining. I honestly favor Bonfim against Islam. Very hot. It's possible. I'd have to watch tape. Not sure. Yeah, I agree. Leon's not going to beat a JDM. I mean, I understand the logic, but JDM should just be able to blitz him and do whatever. He's just a lot more technically sound. Topuria sleeps whole welterweight division. No one has good enough boxing. So yeah, I agree. Oh, Strat 3 been above expectations. Oh, Strat 3 has been spectacular. So, can I get an example? Let me see if I can get an example on the screen. Give me a second. So, there's a new tool as part of Strat 3 that, as I mentioned before, basically broadcasts how the fight is going to go holistically. And what's a good example? What fight do you guys want to see the path it predicted for last week? Let's actually maybe do... Let's do Ursig Elliott, because that's one that was very interesting with. Let me see how I can get this into it. Neil Selkfield. Let me see if I can fit both of them on the page. Give me a second. So the page will take a second to understand, but I will explain what you're looking at. Being stupid. Sorry, it's gonna take an extra moment. So yeah, for those of you who are wondering, even just the pure algorithm money lines were up, I think 19 units last week, if I remember correctly. So Strat 3 is the step up of Strat 2 that I wanted. And hopefully it only gets better from here. Obviously, with a pure algorithm, just realistically, it's going to have its limitations by itself. But like as far as algorithms go, it can't get much better. Gotta try to add this to the slideshow. I'll do it in 2 instead. Yeah. Why is it not letting me adjust the size? Oh, there we go. Almost there. Okay. Now you should be able to see it. So this was Dariush versus Salkield. So basically, it takes a minute to understand what it's saying here. It also might be very small on your screen if you're using mobile, so I'm sorry about that, but I'll explain it here. But basically, it was saying that in a win for Salkield was basically going to get 1 knockdown on average, or 0.7 here. And 54% of the time was going to win by TKO, or in his win, rather. He was going to win 77% of the time by TKO, 11% by sub, 11% by decision. 54% of his wins 52% of his wins, if I can read that would be nice, coming in round 1. So it was very heavily expecting a round 1 TKO. And what was interesting is the odds of round 1 TKO, I believe, were plus 150. So it definitely just figured out a good edge there, to say the least. In a win for Dariush, what was interesting is it was pretty closely favoring TKO and decision, which I thought was weird. But then Dariush basically dropped him with with a jab within like the first 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense now. So very interesting. Obviously, we didn't get to see the what's it called? Dariush win path play out if that was going to happen. But we did see that the Salkield round 1 TKO was quite accurate. All right. So for the Urseg one, this was the really interesting one because it got it ridiculously accurately. So its prediction was Urseg to win by decision, right? And it basically had in an Urseg win, a 58% chance of decision. Overall, a 33% chance of an Urseg decision. Now, interesting thing. In a win, just overall, despite having Urseg winning, it was expecting Elliott to get 2 takedowns, which he ended up getting exactly, I believe, and expected Urseg to get 0.7, and I believe he ended up getting 1 takedown. So this fight almost perfectly mapped out what was going to happen in the fight. I think the striking numbers ended up being a little bit higher than it expected, but like the number of takedowns, the style, and basically how close the fight was going to be or not, it like pretty much perfectly got. So this was very interesting, and overall, like this addition to Strat 3, this is not the main part of Strat 3, this is just the addition fight paths, which if you guys join, the commands for that in the Discord is fight paths and then the fight you want to see. So this has definitely been a massive, like, guess, revelation in terms of what is possible for UFC algorithms going forwards. Let them know how generational Strat 3 is. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy so far. And I do definitely believe it is like the most powerful UFC algorithms on the planet right now. And unlike Lucrative James, who's down like 100 units on the year or whatever the hell, this is only $25 a month. So again, if you guys are betting at all, this will pay for itself pretty quickly. And those of you who are here are definitely going to use it quite well. Strat 3 Part 2 is actually insane. Yeah, it surpassed my expectations as well. I appreciate it. There's no anyone else has anything close to this. Yeah, for sure. I'm very confident in that. What was this argument in chat about Topuria versus what? Morales? Lucrative James will make Strat 1 by the time Oracle has made Strat 6. That's what it feels like. I don't know what he's doing. Future just been rage baiting the whole time. We're having fun. Fair enough. Thoughts on throwing money on Sean just for the value? Okay, so I considered it, and I wouldn't blame anyone who did. And I still might, like, right? So, sometimes last second, you're just like, okay, I'm going to do this. The reason why I haven't done it already is because of that explosiveness difference. I can't unsee it. And even though I feel like Strickland does have a better chance to win than the odds imply for sure, it's one of those fights where I feel like I would feel immensely stupid if I saw that and then bet on it and lost. And sometimes, even though value is there, I just psychologically don't like it. So if you're a very objective value bettor, 100% go for it, right? Like he probably does have a higher percent chance of winning than the odds imply. And even if he gets subbed in round 1, I still think that was explicitly true. But if you don't like to lose bets, and sometimes I just don't, then yeah, you could be a little bit more tentative with it. Would you pick McKee or Ewing? How good do you think McKee is compared to the rest of the bantamweight? I'd probably pick McKee, to be honest. I think Ewing is good, but he's just a little bit too hittable. But I would have to redo tape and see if I'm like missing something. Ewing versus Basharat. I'm very, very mildly leaning Basharat. I think that Basharat winning round 1 is very likely. Ewing winning round 3 is very likely. It's kind of just a question of who wins round 2. Paulo Costa or Chimaev at 205. That's a tough one because we really haven't seen Costa's takedown defense tested much. It was against Romero, and while it was impressive that he was able to defend, it was still like a 45-year-old Romero. So, I don't know. I'm guessing you got Torres versus Fiziev. Yeah, for sure. Topuria versus Strickland. That could be a little tough because Strickland is so defensively responsible. If it's like, assuming they both have a full camp, I do kind of trust Topuria to follow a game plan a bit more though. So I don't know. We need a hero. Anyone who beats Chimaev's the GOAT. Valid. Costa athleticism matches pretty well against Chimaev. Yeah, it does, true. Do you think Torres can beat Salkild? Yeah, he'd sleep Salkild in like probably 2 to 3 minutes. Bautista will 30-27 Corey. It's possible. I do actually feel like Bautista has improved more than Corey has, but I don't know if he's caught up. I'm going to have a hard time picking that one. What's your confidence betting wise this card and how the algo will do? Ultimately, you never know, right? I'm not going to say there are a ton of things immensely free this week. I have my positions that I really like. I've been using the new part of Strat 3, the fight path part, to get some very interesting angles here. So I'm satisfied with the plays I have, but obviously I can never guarantee anything, right? What's Torres' ceiling? He could go very far if he improves his striking defense, because that's really his only weak spot right now. Torres versus Fiziev. I think Torres first round TKO. Arman versus Torres and Fraz. I honestly think both Torres and Ziam would beat Arman. Who's your favorite musical artists and genres? Artists is harder, but genres, it really depends on the moment, in all honesty. It's changed a lot. You said advanced algorithms to calculate Fourier size for the chat. That's wild. I wouldn't call Torres and Ziam like no names. They're only no names to casuals, right? Would you pick Bahamundicic and Torres again? No, I do think Torres did improve his striking defense from then. I still would like if it improved a little bit more, but I think it's improved enough that he would beat Bahamundas. Ziam versus Torres. That's a really tough one, but I would probably lean Ziam mildly. Why is Pereira a dog against Gun? Because bookies are dumb. How does Rufi do against Taporia? I mean, he has a higher chance than most people against Taporia, but I'd still pick Taporia. Charles versus Manuel and Perez. Yeah, I think Charles has a solid chance against Ziam. I think Torres is a really bad matchup for him. Rufi is so big for 155, dude. I think he KO his max right now. That's possible. Rufi needs to learn how to get off the fence. Yeah, that is true. JDM has the best shit in the UFC. That is undisputedly Vittori. Vittori is just immortal. I don't understand what it is. He can take as much damage as humanly possible. He does not care. Got any underdog picks on the White House card? Maybe Steve Garcia, but I haven't done tape for it yet. What do you think the fighters going to the White House to meet Trump? I mean, right, it's their publicity obligations. I don't think you always have to be making a political statement, no matter what direction everyone's opinions are with that or not, right? So I'm not nearly as, I don't really care either way. I know a lot of people do, and that's fair. Everyone can have their opinions. I just don't really care. There's a difference between, for you, Future, there's a difference between meeting someone, accepting money, or like sponsorships or whatever from them, right? And there's also a big difference between Hadrolov and people, regardless of if they're good or not. to say the least. Marvin could survive a nuclear bomb. Yes, I agree. Justin and Kamaru went to Egyptian dictator birthday and personally went to Russia for it. Yeah, and I dislike Justin and Kamaru also. I'm not sure why you're like acting like I'm not. He's rage baiting. Yeah, I'm well aware he's rage baiting. I enjoy it. Corey is a good guy even who's trying to act like a villain. Valid. I need Vittori versus Gautier next for scientific purposes. Yeah, that's what I was saying before. It's great. It would be a great matchup. I think my connection is being a little weird. If you had to meet a UFC fighter, who would you want to meet? It would be interesting to meet Topuria because of his mentality. Oh, actually, you know what? I would say Alexandre Topuria. Can't type as in you mistyped or something else. Why Alexandre? Because he's more of the minds or the brain of that whole operation, so to speak. And Ilya seems very intelligent as well, don't get me wrong. But Alexandre is slightly different focus, and I would want to know more so how he thinks. The mastermind behind the double jump. Yeah, exactly. It is kind of crazy, bro. Sacrificed the whole courage to make sure his brother made it. Yeah, it's a very admirable mentality, to say the least. Do you think Ali will use his industry plant power to shoot missiles at Italy to make sure he doesn't fight Islam? He definitely will if he can. So JDM would just blitz Leon, but he doesn't blitz anyone. He does. I mean, maybe not traditional blitz as you want to call it, but he does like to enter into the pocket quickly against most people. What was your best betting card ever for prediction wise? I wonder where you at. You probably know this better than I do. Cutter was legendary. Which one was that again? Let me find it. Oh, Suryukin versus Hooker? Yeah, that one was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, that one, like, we just pretty much hit everything possible. I think, like, the only thing we missed on that card was Bogdan Grad, even though he was looking good early. But, like, Yagyaev under half a round hit, Alexandre Topuria hit, Ismail Nurdiev TKO hit, and somehow that was, like, really good odds. Nura Aliyev hit, that was great. Almabayev hit against Perez. Dalby hit as a big underdog against Ismagayev. Kyoji hit against Ulanbekov. Volkan TKO hit. Gary hit. Armin under 3.5 hit. And what was it? Oh yeah, Oral by finish hit as well, I believe. And Acosta finish, I believe. Yeah, pretty much everything. Like, we had bets on like most of the card and it hit. That was a wild night. Alexandre can still get champ though. It's possible. It's just going to be harder for him now. Made 500 off $8 valid. Ilia Topuria is the biggest name in the game right now. I mean, it's still Conor, technically speaking, but of the modern era, he's getting there. Alexandres to Ilias for us is to GSP. Yeah, for sure. Are they going to entertain the idea for Ty beating Tony's losing streak? At this point, it seems like they're going to. I think Alexandre cold too more. I mean, he doesn't have the same power Ilya does, so I don't think he's really going to finish him early, but he might finish him late in a 5-round fight, or he could take a decision. Need to join the betting service, man. Just low-key always forget. That's fair. I mean, just sign up now in all honesty then. You have a few days before the event to get acclimated to everything. And you go 13 for 13 in this card. Very unlikely, but you never know. Sweeping a card is not common to say the least. Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I mean, I do interact with the Discord a fair amount if you're in the betting service, I'll say that. Thoughts on Myron Santos' potential? I think he could be a top 10 guy pretty easily. Yeah, I do think he can as well. I don't know if he goes much further, but he can. Thoughts on Armin saying Ilya doesn't shave his rear, so he's not a man. Armin has the weirdest trash talk. I don't know what he thought he was doing there. It just ended up being weird. Albert versus Umar might be in July. That would be interesting. I think Alexandre has the power. He just lacks the commitment. His punches like Topuria does. Yeah, some of it is stylistic. He's not as much of a finisher in terms of his game plan. Charles versus Ziam and Torres, who wins? I did answer that before, but I do think Charles would beat Ziam, but I think Torres would be a bad matchup for him. He was referencing a song. I don't know stuff, dude. Fair enough. To be fair, it's more difficult to go on an 8-fight losing streak in the UFC than it is to go on an 8-fight winning streak. Player made it to 8 wins in a row, but no one is to reach 8 losses. That is technically true. Like, how does Armin know that? Yeah, exactly. Thoughts on Marcio Barbosa's potential? His power seems insane. It's always hard to say with those power guys because all of a sudden they find a guy they can't land it on easily and things go very bad. Because I think he's 1-2 in fights that go past round 1 or something like that. So there's definitely a clear game plan for how you could beat him. So, we'll see what happens. Or am I going to say, well, he isn't the man because he fights next? Fair. Funniest UFC fighter? I have to think about that more. I don't know. Who's the best wrestler in the UFC of all time, in your opinion? Begrudgingly, I do think it's Khabib skill for skill. I think that like GSP, for example, was a more well-rounded fighter. So when people ask me who do I think who would win GSP versus Khabib, I do think it is GSP. But do I think like who is a pure wrestler is the best? It is probably. You think Derek Lewis can beat Josh Hockett? There's a chance, but I don't think so. I think he's too slow at this point. Tony Ferguson versus Ty. I'm taking Tony. Wins between Torres and Ziam then. Honestly, every time you ask me that one, I might have a different answer. I don't know. I like at the moment I'd very, very mildly lean Ziam, but I'm not sure. I feel like Talbot would finish Umar late. In a 5-round fight, it's possible. 3 rounds less likely. Indiana reference to the old song like it. You're good. Topuria slumps Armin, plus how successful would Topuria be in the grappling? Yeah, Topuria will slump Armin if that fight happens. But in the grappling, like, maybe, I don't know. The thing is, Topuria is not even tested in that realm. Besides, like, taking down Holloway pretty easily. So it's hard to say. Who's your favorite MMA fighter outside of the UFC? Christian Lee is up there. Who else? Before it was easier to answer because it was Horiguchi, but now that he's back in the UFC, I can't say that. Maybe I'll go with Christian Lee, yeah. Fighters who try to be funny and and there are fighters who unintentionally. Yeah, true. When people talk about some power or about the accuracy of the KOs or sometimes, but there's also power. Like Torres has both, for example. He has crazy power and accuracy. Does Gamrot beat Hooker now? Yeah, I think so. John Jones is the best wrestler in UFC of all time. If you ask Dana White, sure. Talbot versus Umar in 3 and 5 round fights. In 3 rounds, I'd probably lean Umar. In 5 rounds, I'd probably lean Talbot, but I might change my mind if I watch tape. Who do you think has most power pound for pound of all time? Honestly, it could be Prime Figgy. I'm not positive. Khabib couldn't take down Al Iaquinta. I mean, Khabib took down Al Iaquinta a lot of times. Plus, like, Islam hasn't been nearly as tested in the wrestling. Like, despite the fact that neither of them was very tested in all honesty, like, Islam is even less tested in the wrestling. And Islam was having trouble wrestling Poirier, which is a much worse look because at least Iaquinta was like a solid wrestler. Gamrot and Arman both have better traditional takedowns in the open. They are better in the open, I agree, but holistically, Khabib was probably better. Merab or Yan, 3 predictions. I mean, it's harder to predict now that I know that Merab doesn't have a functioning nose. I'm still going to mildly lean Merab, but I don't know. Arman isn't the Chimaev type of grappler like people act as Arman fans have never actually watched him. But I agree with that, yeah. Taira versus Volk. Taira. Do you think that Khamzat versus Sean could be more of a hatred between fighters, but the UFC learned how to manage the beefs now? It may not seem as much as bad blood as people think. It's very possible. I mean, part of the problem is that Khamzat doesn't like know how to speak English properly. So we end up with the infamous clip that's going around today, if you know what I'm talking about. Who's most likely to be the next lightweight champion in your opinion? Next, it really depends on like the matchups they give and what's going to happen. Like, we could have a weird world where if Ilya goes up to 170, BSD ends up being champion. Gamrot, John Silva, and JPL, and your Oracle's counts. Add a Nick Diaz, I think. And I mean, Gamrot, I feel like is underrated, but he's definitely not that high on my list. Oh, but is gonna make Umar pole dance. That would be funny. Nice to see you here, Val. Rosenstrike, please come back. At this point for heavyweight, yeah. Khabib was much better than Islam. I agree. How well could Rulitalo do in the UFC? I'd have to look, honestly. I don't remember. Arman breaks Ilya on the ground. I mean, Arman's not going to get Ilya to the ground. Like, Arman's not... I don't know. I feel like people have gotten this weird interpretation of who Arman is. He's not that good. Do you think Gable Stevenson beats Aspinall or No, not at all. What do you think about that one Ryzen undefeated champion, Shadalayev or whatever? He's okay, but he's not passing a PED test. And he's also like, he's not as good as people think because he has trouble getting control against anyone who's decent on the ground. Rębecki versus Dawson. Oh, did you miss the breakdowns earlier? But I said Dawson. Yuri versus Xiangming Yang. Probably Yuri. Rumble Johnson versus Yuri. Probably Rumble. John Jones has proven himself against elite grapplers. Like who? I mean, it's not like he had success wrestling against Cormier. If he had, maybe we could say that. So, I mean, John Jones didn't have any real success against like actual high-level wrestlers. I mean, we could say that Jones and Khabib both didn't have success against high-level wrestlers. That is true, I suppose. But at least like Khabib had much more success against mid wrestlers, while Jones had like mediocre success. Plus Poirier had torn ACL. Yeah, agreed. Yuri versus Blachowicz right now. Right now, I'd lean Yuri, but definitely if Blachowicz was a little younger, Jan would take it. Poirier had a super solid game plan. I mean, his team was literally yelling at him from going away from the game plan, so I don't know about that. Who beats Braba bantamweight besides Jan? I'd have to look. Honestly. What infamous clip can you send in the Discord? Just ask everyone there what it is. They'll know what I'm talking about. If not, I'll send it later. The next lightweight emperor, it's Charles Borrelia moved up. They probably make Charles versus Carpenter for the vacant and probably drones the push. I mean, I hope so. I'd like to see Charles as a champion again, but I'm not sure if he's going to get the chance. So Poirier's elite instinctive takedown defense, but body locks might work somewhat on him, but Armin doesn't even really go to body locks much. Rufy versus Yam and Torres. Ooh. That's an interesting one. I'd have to watch tape before I'm confident there. How long until we get to see a male fighter from the great subcontinent of India get a win in the UFC? Didn't Jubilee technically get a UFC win? Let me see. Am I hallucinating? Yeah, I mean, technically Jubilee has one UFC win. If you're waiting for another one, I couldn't tell you. Who wins Ngannou or Lins? Probably Ngannou. Armin can definitely take Ilian down. I mean, I don't know what evidence there would be for that. He took DC down 7 times that fight. He was credited with 3 takedowns, and off those 3 takedowns, he got a combined, like, 2.5 minutes of control, which isn't nothing, but it's also not spectacular. And some of that control was also not even takedown control, it was just fence. So it's probably actually like 1 minute off of 3 takedowns. That's like, nah. Which wrestler did Khabib fight in the UFC? I mean, there's multiple. Like, Tibau was an okay wrestler. What's his name? The guy he set the record against was oh god, I always blank on his name. Trujillo, or however you say that. He's a wrestler. He was a decent wrestler. Iaquinta was a decent wrestler. Like, if we're talking about the level of wrestlers that Jones fought besides DC, I mean, those are all up there. RDA is also a fine wrestler as well, right? So Who wins in the rematch, Johnny Eblen or Costillo Ben Steelis? I'm gonna go with Ben Steelis. I don't think Johnny Eblen's like a real fighter. Turns out I'll play both teams. You know what? Yeah, exactly. I feel like Taira dominates easily. Valid. Ghibli's win was en road to UFC there, right? No, his win was technically in the UFC. The last win was technically in the UFC because of how it works. Is the Hyder Emil title run over? Yeah, I think it is. I missed the main event breakdown. Can you see Chimaev breaking down Strickland breaking down Chimaev in the championships rounds? I mean, long story short, I gave a much more nuanced breakdown before. I said I'm picking Chimaev decision. I also would not be shocked to the Chimaev early submission, but I think there's definitely a chance of, if Strickland can continue to scramble early constantly, that he can get a late finish. Who would Don Fry beat in the current heavyweight top 15? I don't know if Ty's still there somehow, probably him. Ngannou versus the top 5 UFC heavyweights right now. I mean, Aspel would destroy him. Gon would destroy him. He could probably beat Volkov, I guess. He could probably beat the others, yeah. Imagine you line up the chins of Dominic Reyes, Johnny Walker, Dariush, and Grant Dawson. How many of them were KO'd by a single punch from Tim Elliott? So, like, at least Johnny Walker, I think it takes more than that. Like, usually gets hit somewhat clean before he gets put out, even though it always looks weird. Dariush and Grant Dawson, yeah, they might have some issues. Reyes, he could probably take a few also. He actually took more punishment from, like, Yuri and such than people remember. Francis or Josh? Francis. Ngannou versus Poatan, how would that go? Alex would sleep him in like a minute. Japanese are 0-7-1 on title fights in the UFC. I mean, can't get a win until the first person gets a win. RDA got subbed by Cowboy 2 times on the same night. Gamrot would. Khabib would run him. Gamrot would definitely be one of Khabib's worst matchups. And I wish I could say I think that Gamrot would beat him. I mean, obviously, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Khabib as a person, to say the least. But I still think that Khabib would win. Match Snell versus Jocelyn Edwards. I'm still taking Match Snell. Phil Hawes has earned the right to be in that no chin lineup. Stop disrespecting no chin. Go valid. Vitor Belfort, I can't like is like laughable in a best wrestler list, right? If you want to say he's the equivalent of, say, like a Dustin Poirier in terms of wrestling, okay, sure. Technically a road to UFC fight, Jubilee won, but you're right that it was an Octagon UFC card. The UFC doesn't. UFC win though. Are you sure about that? Because at least in the commentary, I'm pretty sure they say it goes on their UFC record, but I could be wrong. Goodbye, Oracle. I'm going to play by Hooper Pill. Thank you. Have a good night, man. Have you heard of We Want Picks? They have AI tools and act like no one else posts anything posts them. Yeah, I mean, okay, I have nothing against them as people, right? I think they're some of the better people in the space. Their tools are not there. Let's just put it that way. But I think they're fine as people, right? So I'm not going to say anything bad about them. But there is a difference in quality. Let's just. Do you think Ngannou versus Stipe 2 is more of a result of Ngannou improvement or Stipe aggression? It was a combination. As there was a lot of Stipe aggression and there was some Ngannou improvement. 90-year-old with dementia can make better fights than Dana and Hunter right now. Seems like it. I'm confused why you think Vitor was some like submission wizard or something. He has 3 submission wins and 2 submission losses out of a good 40 fights or so. He also like got taken down a lot of times in the UFC. He was not immensely wrestling. What would be the word? He was not an amazingly technical wrestler, let's put it that way. Like Poirier, it was definitely a better, at least, wrestler and grappler than Belfort. If you met Dana, what's the first thing you'd say to him / ask? Honestly, I'd have to think about it. I'm just saying, bro didn't show up until Future left. That's a good point. You might be right. You definitely might be right, yeah. Well, it is late. I need to get up early tomorrow. Good night, guys. Good night, Oracle. Have a good night, Elia. I'm surprised I'm streaming as well. I can't tell if Nico is rage baiting or not because he just keeps saying things that are like nonsensical. Like at least Poirier has like 7 submission wins. Jones versus Volkov. I mean, Jones would just take him down realistically and sub him. It would look pretty much like Jones versus God. Is it crazy to say Taira is a better striker than Van? I don't think he's a better striker, but I understand what angle you're taking, all right? He definitely has more power, and he definitely has like more single punch precision. Is not Nico its future? It's possible. I'm not sure why you're acting like I'm a Khabib glazer when I am on record despising Khabib, just like all in all. If I'm saying Khabib is good at something, he's good at something, because I hate Khabib. Like, I truly despise him. Alright guys, we're probably going to wrap things up here. If you guys are betting again one more time, do consider signing up for the betting service. Link is in the description here. And of course, feel free to DM me with any questions on Instagram. If you guys are betting, whether you're in the service or not, best of luck for Saturday. I hope you guys have a good night and a good time watching the card. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you for coming, and see you guys next time.